Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a bit chilly in this room. How are you? I was saying, it seems that whenever I come and talk to the farmers, I've got one drama or the other. Last year at Agribusiness, you recall, it was the middle of the strike. And this year, I've got the locos. I just reckon by now, I keep on saying is that I'm due a miracle, dear Lord, please, I am. It's really been, for all of that. Yeah, having said all of that, I think, and I hope there are a few people from Transnet here. Michelle is somewhere. I said to her she'll have to make the presentation if I don't make it. What the last couple of years have enabled us to do is to do quite a serious rethink inside Transnet around how we deal both with the corridors as well as the commodities that run on those. But also to start asking questions about what is it that we are trying to achieve, not just as Transnet, because it's a bit of a mistake if we don't see ourselves as part of enabling export competitiveness of whatever it is that we may be moving at any given time. And then also starting to get a little bit more real about what we can do. So some background slides. Mitchell has already started talking. In fact, I don't want to lose some of the points that you made, Mitchell. I hope at the point, because it wasn't part of my presentation necessarily. But I thought increasingly when we think on the strategy side is you look at the entire supply chain, and we are not in every element of it, obviously, but would frankly be between rail transportation and the container terminals as well, and increasingly looking at how we use rail terminals as part of the extension of the port terminals so that there can be greater efficiency. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems that we've had in the port system in South Africa is that it's been we, ourselves, and you as well, the users, have tended to treat it like a storage and not so much as the throughput capacity. So it leads to congestion, both at the port, congestion coming into the port, and everything else. So what we've been trying to do is to figure out a business model that ensures that as fast as possible, we evacuate the ports. Ideally, if we can, to use rail, but let's also bear in mind, the problem with rail is that it tends to be more cost-effective the longer the distance. However, with the introduction of third-party players and all kinds of players, who knows? It's possible that you're going to be able to have somebody who's going to be able to run shuttle services quite cheaply. We've started running some shuttles in Durban, and so we'll be looking at what's happening with the funding if we're saving money that way. I'll come back to the storage capacities. So this was a rating that was done by CGA last year after a meeting. I'm given this by strategy about the relative performance of the container terminal in Cape Town. I just got a message today from Andiswa. People in Cape Town who use Cape Town Port will know that for quite a lot of days last week, it's been windbound or fog-bound or something happening. And yesterday it was windbound. They were indicating to me that it should be opening back again tonight, and then there's a small window and things change again. So it's really quite a big issue that we should be able to be more robust in being able to deal with the weather. I'll give you an update on where we are with the project that we spoke about last year, which is starting to look at not so much semi-automation, but a lot more remote operation for some of our equipment, which would enable us to keep the port open for quite a long time. So we did also some work, and we were looking at just how we've been able to perform with agriculture. With the rail, there's been quite a significant amount of growth, but not as much as we'd all like to see, given the fact that actually agriculture, in some ways, is as dispersed as the mining to a large extent, the only difference being weight, and that's an issue that we have to deal with in the system. Just late last year, I think, we were in Spain looking at other issues that look at how we could build a waterfront in KZN, and also ensure that there's faster evacuation of cargo by looking at tunneling, as they've done in certain countries, so that you don't clog the roads on top. But also, what was a big issue even for them was how do you price lightweight commodities on rail? Because rail tends to price on weight per ton kilometer, basically. But this is just an indication of how we've performed, the volumes that we've been able to move. And at 500,000 TEUs, I think South Africa is doing fantastically well. And we'd really like to stay as a key player. So, Mitchell, I thought I would just, because this remains probably, in fact, our most difficult problem at present that we have to deal with. We solve this problem, I think, by and large, will be through the worst of it. Why I say that, and you start seeing this starting to have an impact. The National Port Authority, there's all kinds of modernizations, new investments that we're having at the port, a couple of tenders which are out in Richards Bay. So anyway, I mean, the biggest problem that we have at present relates to the locomotives. It's the most ridiculous story on earth. I mean, if I ever write a book, I might just pause really long at this section. So with the 1,064 locos that were being bought, there was a spread, as indicated on that slide, where we were buying electrics. The two are electrics, and the two at the bottom are diesels. Webtech, which used to be GE, has supplies, meets the standards and everything, all done and dusted. Alstom, in fact BT, because it was BT, certain issues with their supply chains, and that meant that's why they've only delivered 90 of their 240 locos. Now, they and CSR in particular, now CSR and CNR subsequently merge and form one company. In the case of CNR, they supplied 22, and we've basically told the company that we are planning to cancel that, because that 22 is really bad. In fact, if you look across to long-standing locos, you'll see that 17 of the 22 are long-standing locos, which means that they're broken already, they can't run. Long-standing locos are anything after 50 days, if it hasn't been operational, we would classify it as long-standing. In the case of Alstom, when we arrived, the contracts had been set aside in December 2019. The new Chief Legal Officer, Advocate Kutsia, started around May of 2020. You just don't know the copious amounts of documents that she and the team had to go through. So we needed to lodge. You can't, because it's an irregular contract, effectively, right? So you can't do anything with it until you've lodged your papers in court. Once you've lodged the papers in court, the SIU then gives you permission to start going into a commercial negotiation. So we start the commercial negotiation with the two entities, the CSR as well as BT. Both actually were truly difficult. The people who saved us on BT was Alstom buying BT, because Alstom then had to do DD. And in Alstom's DD, they found whatever they found. The process allows you to do a protected disclosure. So you disclose to the NPA. It's got nothing to do with us. As soon as you've done this disclosure, then we can start negotiating with you on how we will convert the contract and make it regular. So you stay with the same contract. We're quite far. We probably, hopefully, cross fingers, angels in heaven, we should be able to close with them now at the end of March. Because then one of the elements, which actually we negotiate with the Chinese first, is a price walk, because we allege that we overpaid for the local. So you have to prove your allegation that you overpaid. So there's a process that we've all agreed. In the case of the Chinese, by the way, all of these things are signed. We've signed the definitive agreement. And we also made a change in that historically, Transnet Engineering has always been the maintainer of the locals. But we weren't quite able, obviously, to hold them to a 95% reliability, because it has guarantees and warranties when you don't make the loco available. So for the first time, when we put out this tender this early in the year, for the return service to service of the long-standing locos, we've said each of the OEMs, so those long-standing, so Webtech, CNR, no, not CNR, right? Mitsui and Alstom, you come, take all of your locos, your long-standings, tell us how quickly you can bring them back into the fleet, and then we immediately negotiate with you a materials reliability and spares agreement, which is anything between 10 years. The longest actually that we've got signed, and that's why it's weird, is the Chinese, which is 20 years. What that means is that we no longer carry the consignment stock ourselves. They carry the consignment stock. And then they also need to make sure that there's technical support directly available for us in South Africa. That's done and dusted. In the Chinese, Alstom and WebTech, we agreed that it would be done by June this year, the materials and reliability. The tender's closing in April, on the 14th of April. And then that helps in terms of getting reliability of locos, save for the one problem, which with the Chinese CSR, we wouldn't be able to get there because they've got two problems, which are not our problems. The two problems are they've got to go to the receiver and deal with the receiver about whatever issues there may be with their tax matters. Now, you know that your tax issues are between you and the receiver, not anyone else. We've done as much as we can to get them to understand, to get both parties actually to understand, and to get as close to a deal as possible. But eventually, CSR must come and sign the agreement and talk to SARS. And then the second matter relates to the Reserve Bank, where they've got to come and talk to the Reserve Bank, because the Reserve Bank has got a couple of financial flows that they have questions on. They need to come and answer the Reserve Bank. We can't do that. So whenever those two matters come up, they say, no, you must make it go away. I mean, I can't. So this is where it requires a little bit of a miracle, let me tell you. However, we have been nagging and talking to government for a long time to get them to understand is that absolutely nothing we can do. We have done everything that we can do. So hopefully there should be a small mission of us going through to China to see whether we can get them. Why they are essential? It's not so much, because you can see at the bottom we've issued another tender, which is a step-in OEM. So this is basically taking a Toyota and making it into a hybrid Mazda, effectively. It can be done, it's been done. Uzbekistan and Mexico was two of the countries. The problem, it takes time. And the time that we've been given is anything between 2 and 3 years. Now, of our new locos, 455 are the Chinese locos. And what they did is they stopped supplying us any parts for any loco they have ever sold to us. So it wasn't just the ones that were related to the contract. It was anything they have ever sold to us. They just refused to supply us any component and any part. So their locos then end up. So why they're crucial is that when we negotiated with them, the schedule with which they would be able to bring back their locos. So when we first worked on this, we had 164 and long-standing of theirs, 164 of the locos. Today, we've got 174. So it's a growing problem. If they came and they brought their componentry, we would be able to bring those electrics back into the system really quickly. Their electrics run on the coal line, most profitable line for us, and they also run on the Northeast Corridor, which is the corridor that carries chrome and magnetite, some of it into Mozambique. So basically, it's a crisis, it's a problem that really needs a solution. But I thought I'd get you up to speed on that. And the point that Mitchell was raising about cable theft, I mean, I just want to give you a sense of the numbers. And this too, we need to ask what happened, right? We've always had cable theft. In 1819, it was 275 kilometers that was stolen that year. It's a lot. I mean, 275 kilometers is a heck of a lot. In 1920, it increases to 450 kilometers. In 2021, it goes to 724 kilometers. In 2021-22, it goes to 1,500 kilometers. So this year, we think we might do better because we're going to go back to 1,000 kilometers. Well, you see, because the cost to us is not only in the flows that don't happen, that costs us about 2 billion rand, it costs us about 400 million plus to replace the cables, because we replace the cables and they come back again and they steal. And the problem, even if you're putting in this tiger wire, which is the alternative to the copper, if you don't know that it's tiger wire, you're still going to steal it first, right? So we're going to replace the tiger wire before, it's a horrendous situation. And the problem with this, right, is that 60% of our system is electric. And when you look at everybody else in the world, and I mean, I've been asking this question, is in the US, it's diesel. In Australia, it's diesel. Now, there are other additional benefits actually to being diesel. I mean, I know that there are problems with being green. Anyway, further along on the story. So what we started, and Mitchell, maybe, or you, John, it would be useful if you would confirm this for us. So one of the things that we've been saying is that the citrus from South Africa competes with some other citrus in the world, getting into the key global markets. So it's not enough to just say that the Durban port is ranked number 363. What we should start doing is say, okay, so what is our improvement plan to the core ports that move the product that we compete with? So Valencia in Spain, Santos in Brazil, Miami in the US, and so Turkey, and as you see it, what we will start doing is see how we rank relative to them in virtually all of the performance indices. And that's what we want to drive all of our improvements towards. Now, in terms of port performance, it would be the stuff that the TNPA is responsible for. They're responsible for pilotage, so they bring in the vessel. And some of our problems are not always TPT. There's quite an amount which is TNPA, but we'll also just indicate to you what are the changes that we're doing. Incidentally, the strategy that we've shifted for maintenance of rolling stock is exactly the same strategy that we're implementing in the ports. So in the ports, we'd have, in fact, I was quite amazed that we're the third largest customer globally for LIBA. And yet we don't have a master service agreement with them and reliability. So we're now moving in that direction where we will have LIBA also based in South Africa with the spares and the parts. So when a crane goes down, they're responsible for making it available within a short period of time because we're looking for 95% reliability. So you'll get away from this thing that there's a crane and we're waiting for something, it's 2 weeks. It's not, if we're waiting for 2 weeks, we're charging somebody for not making sure that it's available in South Africa. It's more expensive, but it's worth the while for the reliability. So that's the direction in which we're going. So if you look at TPT, there's work that we're doing around improving on operating time of ships. We must say that this partnership in DCT and also NCT might have some complications, but at least in DCT for an international terminal operator is actually quite crucial, in particular around things like the processes that we have, improving and increasing the efficiency of that. We're hoping that by April, towards the end of April, we should be able to announce the winner. That's important for us in that it gives us cash on the one hand, but it also gives us this global player who we want to make sure that the learnings go through the entire system. In the case of TNPA, they have quite an extensive program for procuring tugs. You'll know that sometimes we don't have the right number of tugs at the various ports. So the fastest, I mean, there's the new tugs that they're buying, the 3 tugs, and that needs to be built. We expect those to be in 2026. However, we are also buying 5 second-hand tugs, and those should be in operation. We should see them delivered around August 2023. So that should lead to improvement. And some of the tugs which have been needing maintenance and fixing back in should be delivered around 2023. So there's quite a lot of work that we've been doing. Now, unfortunately, you know, some of the stuff, whilst you're still fixing and you're chasing and you're understanding why was, you know, kind of thing, it looks like there's death and there's no activity whatsoever. But at least all of these tenders are out in the market, and now it's a matter of getting to close, evaluating. And this was just a slide where we were showing some of the equipment that we plan to buy for the ports. I think the type and the delivery date is a lot more interesting than the status that is inside Transnet. So we should start to see real improvement on the delivery. Quite a lot of work needs to be done on our side. The procurement, we talk to government all the time. It's one thing to say that you've given us an exemption from a particular section of the PFMA, but what we're really trying to get to is to be able to have really world-class efficient procurement processes, so we take away from these delays. One of the things that we've actually said to TPT in particular is that their projects must be delivered on a turnkey basis. So we spoke a bit about the expansion at Cape Town Port, and we are moving on that one as well. in there, really, we need to do the stack upgrade. That's at, oh, okay, sorry. We've got to do the stack upgrade. That's one, the container stack upgrade, so that we can stack more, the strengthening of that. There's the rail upgrade, and that's the, I don't know. The rail upgrade is A2, the entry into the port. And we've already have a temporary truck staging area, but are looking to a permanent one. And also the automation of booking. So on the bottom is an indication of when we anticipate to get to the 1.4 million TEUs in Cape Town. We're not there yet in terms of the volumes that we move, but by that period, hopefully, we will be there. In as far as Culemborg is concerned, and that's that site B, TNPA has already started working on developing a cool port precinct. And I think that's an area that we can always get you to have another meeting with them and hear what their plans are. And we'd be more than willing to hear what you regard as a competitive cool port precinct, and we'll happily do a joint development on that going forward. Then on the rail side, I've already indicated that one of the biggest issues on rail and for us is that we tend to price on weight. So what is really interesting with the national white paper with third-party access, we've been saying, well, if you are able to move it profitably on your own, happy to do a hook and haul service on the one hand, but also increasingly, if we lose money off it and you have private players who are able to move your cargo on rail, because we have an interest in moving your cargo on rail, right? Because we make money on the track at the very least. More than interested in hearing what you are able to put together. So the terminals which we're prioritizing is Kakamas here in the Western Cape, Klaver, Orchard, Elgin, and Balcon. Balcon is going to be on the next two slides. Next one. You would have heard about the investment that's been made by Maersk. That's at the, oh dear, I keep on doing that. That's at the old PX site, PX shed, Maersk and the vacant land. So I'll show you what they're planning to do. Now in Balcon, we've got 244 plug points. You'll know that in Durban, we've got 3,400 now, and in Cape Town, we've got 3,400 as well, and the 2,650 or so that we have in Mucha as well as PE container terminal. So nice progress being made, and really for us, really exciting to have Maersk as an investor in that yard, in that area, because it means that our vision of using Balcon as actually an extension of the port so that we can evacuate a lot faster. And actually, if you arrive at the port and the port is clogged or closed for one reason or the other, Balcon becomes a real option going forward. Operationally, where we're looking to is to move towards a 24/7 operation. We've already started hiring new staff because we will need that, and also bringing in new people, new equipment as well. The capacity TEUs on a bi-directional basis that we're able to achieve currently is 144,000 TEUs. With 24/7 three-shift operation, we should be able to get to 268,000 TEUs. I just thought I'd show you the picture of what the facility that Maersk is going to be building. We like the fact that they're upgrading our land and our facilities as well. And actually, we're looking to get into a lot more partnerships. There's quite a lot of rail sidings and terminals up in the inland. Bella Bella is out, Sanin is out in the market. A few of them are out in the market and should be closing relatively soon. And there we were looking for partners who would invest in the facility and use that as part of the cold storage chain going forward. So just to, and I'm getting towards the end, guys, was to talk a little, just to give you a sense on the container corridor. Not an easy decision. This is one of the most expensive systems that we run. It's two lines, two electrified lines, with probably 40 to 60% of our cable theft incidents as well. So it's a problem to run this because each time you bring back the electricity, you have cable stolen. I'm told that the area between Lions River and Moy River is the heartland of the cable theft. Be that as it may, one of the things that we started to trial here was to run diesel trains. The problem is that the Sidara Tunnel is 6 kilometers long and the diesel dies in there. So we've been looking to what are the solutions that you can put in place. The long and the short of it, Mitchell, we get back to 42 slots actually by the end of April of this year. We'll be back at 42 slots. The relay room will be sorted out, and there's a piece which was difficult. We had Stefanuti, who are a contractor on that. They had some issues. So they should be done by the end of April. So we will be at 42 slots. The challenge is that you actually need and the minimum amount that we've indicated in the tender was 5.5 billion rand to invest and upgrade the system to get it to a point where you maintain it at that level so that you keep to the 42 slots, because we'll be looking for revenue of 42 slots at the end of the day. We then also said, you've got to assure us that at the minimum, you're going to be able to move 500,000 TEUs. So there are some people, if you control cargo, because we've kept, City Deep is also part of this whole deal. So they'll be responsible for the City Deep terminal, because you do need a consolidation point. So to a large extent, we think between the 4PLs as well as the shipping lines, this should be an amazing opportunity. And it's a 20-year operating lease. They can run with our equipment. At a point, if they want to buy their own, they can buy their own. And we want to facilitate it to go as fast as possible. That's why we structured it that way. We also had to make sure, because you imagine, our workers would not be very happy with us if we hadn't found a way to ensure that we protect their jobs as well in the process. So we're very excited to see what's going to happen. We had approached government to say, if you gave us a grant or subsidy of sorts, over a period of about 3 years, about 9 billion rand, we would be able to bring the system back to 42 slots and keep it at that level. And then what we would be able to do is also then have slot sales, because we would continue with the slot sales on a pretty aggressive basis, because there's no running away. The problem with this corridor, you move containers, you move autos, and we move agriculture, and all of it is lightweight. We have never made money on it. It costs us 2.18 rand to run, and we only get R1 for it. So since 2011 to last year, we've lost 19 billion rand on this system. So I think really we'll see. Hopefully it generates interesting results, but so far we've actually received some seriously good interest. It helps, moves the road to rail cargo quite quickly. We have to solve the problem, Mitchell did indicate it, is that there are many people who bought these long distance trucks. And if rail suddenly starts to function, we have to worry about security, and then also have to worry to make sure that somehow we bring these guys into the last mile at the receiving point, and last mile at the port as well. But I think we also started to look at that and how we could make that possible. So I thought I would end with the slide, which basically towards my conclusion, which just gives a bit of an update on the remote operations. So we obviously needed to do quite a lot of studies. We've done quite a lot of work. We got the World Bank to give us a port specialist to look at what we would need to do to get to some sort of semi-automation or remote operations. And it was actually quite a heck of a lot of things that you needed to do, broadband, and that was even before we had done the spectrum sale. And also electricity obviously needs to be very reliable as well. So we have a team of consultants who are working with us. The next phase, we should be able to get to finalizing on the business case. What we know for now is that, let me see, we wanted to see on the ship-to-shore cranes, RTGs, as well as the RMGs, the rail-mounted gantry cranes, which one we should automate, because you can't automate everything. It's not possible in any case, because it would have to convert it into a completely automatic port. And so what we found is that in the case of CT in Cape Town, it makes a lot more sense to do the RTGs on a remote operation, but we now need to get to the next phases. Ideally, if the phases prove that it's viable projects, we should be going out into the market by June this year and August this year for CTC, and Pier 1 by August. All of the projects that we are doing now, we are making sure, and especially in the case of TPT, we are making sure that they turnkey projects, so we don't take the risk of implementation of delivery. So really, in conclusion, what I believe and what we all believe in Transnet is that we need to improve on intermodal connectivity, not running away from the fact that fundamentally most of the cargo coming to the port will remain, if we ever achieve the 40%, because currently if you're on the container corridor, that corridor into the port, we are like just at 10%, and if not lower on some days. We need to get back up towards the 20-30%, because actually that's what Europe manages, by the way, is about 30% of the cargo. And this is not the heavy ores, right? Heavy ores, we are doing 65% plus on that one. But we need to have a better system that actually recognizes the fact that you use both road and rail to get into the port. So the intermodal connectivity is really quite crucial. On the other side of the divide, we actually really, and that is us working together as well as the shipping lines, is that we do need to see a lot more vessels calling in South Africa. We do need to encourage vessels to continue calling in NCT, because weather-wise, it actually is a much more stable area for us. It's quite unfortunate that the rail connectivity from the Western Cape into the Eastern Cape is not the best, because that would have been another option of moving cargo between the two ports a lot more efficiently. But yeah, that is us. Really would like to continue with the partnership that we've developed with you, the agricultural sector. Really important sector. The value that you, as citrus in particular, generate for South Africa is real. And the fact that you are distributed throughout the country means that the economic opportunity is not just concentrated in one area. I know we've signed an agreement with Agri-SA to work closely on strategy development. And as I was listening to you, Mitchell, we've been looking at a lot of issues around fuel, diesel, because diesel for us is a massive cost. And also, with load shedding, how do we make sure that critical ports are never, ever switched off? So what is our backup position? So we are running around the world, and it's hard as hell to try and get gensets that we can start pulling into the ports so that the ports at least can be functional. But thank you very much.